Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depends where you are. And greeting from Hong Kong. And we are now come to this morning's keynote speak session. It's my honor to introduce the speaker, Professor George Holmes, who is a professor in Fordham University. He's also a chief research officer of the university. And he is a political scientist, but also a philosopher. So now I hand the stage to Professor Holmes without any further delay. Professor Holmes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Sorry about that. By the way, I'm the historian instead of a political scientist. So to you, it's the same, right? All the social science.
Politics. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for Professor Guo and Hong Kong Baptist University to organize this fascinating conference. Because as you know, right now, discussion on the COVID-19 in China and the United States basically focuses on 5 hot topics such as medical science, economy, politics, psychology, and the US-China relation. But few, if any, people discuss it from perspective of meaningless or priceless culture and the humanities. That's why I really appreciate Hong Kong Baptist University's pioneering efforts to offer this great, fascinating, facilitate this such a innovative debate about the role of humanities in public crisis. Now, let me share. Okay, so first of all, let me talk about, it seems to me that one of the benefits of addressing COVID-19 from perspective of humanities is to help us reflect and self-criticize the common imperfections of humans, given the fact that most people, as you know, get used to blame on others and escape our own responsibilities. This conference is offering great opportunity to evaluate our common selfishness, bias, and arrogance. So in particular, we often go against extremes in words while doing extremes without knowing it. Therefore, this is very critical to me to follow the principle of appropriate philosophy to address the common weakness of human nature during this COVID-19 crisis. My talk today will address the role of moderation in combating COVID-19 in both China and the United States in the past 9 months. Generally speaking, I will cover 4 subjects as I list on my PPT. Number 1, I will define the appropriate philosophy based on the classical theories. Second one, I will select 2 or 3 cases related to COVID-19 in the past months to demonstrate human mistakes in the 2 countries. Number 3, I will discuss the common dilemmas caused by either excess or deficiency of human behaviors, leading to many unnecessary disasters. Finally, I will add my critical reflection and a suggestion on the lack of proper behaviors, proposing some conceptual and the practical solution in the future. So this is okay, let's move to the first subject or second subject I'm going to address today, so-called the definition of moderation and appropriation. As you know, according to the contribution by the Confucius and Aristotle, I would like to define appropriation as moderate words and actions which come from the ordinary, subjective, evolutionary, harmony, and the relative middle range with the positive virtues. This definition covers at least 6 key points of appropriation. Number 1, moderation represents impartial middle range instead of a middle point. Observation, analysis, and the decision-making requires the use of a triple perspective, such as insufficiency, over-sufficiency, and moderate. Dividing into 2 is not enough in judging the complicated facts. However, this middle perspective cannot be too specific, like midpoint, which means totally different between middle range and middle point. Instead, it should have a proper range to cover flexible areas and options for human behaviors. Number two, this middle range perspective should follow a common sense, popular habit, and the general customs recognized by ordinary or normal peoples. Third one, this middle viewpoint relates to the subjective balance, judgments, and the compromises. In other words, in order to find intermediate, it's necessary to first define the boundary between deficiency and oversufficiency, right? And then finally, determine the center between the two poles. Number four, determination of this middle range should follow the historical and evolutionary principle conditioned by different people, different cultures, times, and locations. The previous moderation may be extreme or insufficient today. This we call the evolutionary historical perspective. Number five, this middle approach also has a peacemaking function because middle position usually has its unique mechanism to serve as a critical bridge between two extremes. As always, peace requires compromises, but compromise relying on identifying, developing, and implementing the middle and the moderate proposals. Everything should start with the middle, but accomplish with peace. Finally, the value of appropriation is relative. Generally speaking, moderation has a positive value. However, once moderation has a fixed and inflexible for a long time, it may lead to lack of mobility, change, and dynamics. Keep in mind, excessive moderation is not appropriate, but extreme excessiveness may be proper again under some circumstances. So it's very complicated. One point I would like to address is both Confucius and Aristotle emphasized the moral judgment for moderation. For instance, Confucius believed that moderation can only be done by a gentleman, 君子, but a small man like a 小人 is impossible to reach moderation. Similarly, in Aristotle's view, people with moral virtue can be moderate, but vices, like evil, vices by nature prefer over-sufficient or insufficient behaviors. So, but very important, Zhu Xi in 12th century and Adam Smith in the 18th century disagreed the high moral requirements of moderation set up by Confucius and Aristotle. According to Zhu Xi, moderation essentially means common, in which all ordinary people can try to learn, approach, and perform. Adam Smith also believed that appropriation is what the mediocrity can do. This means that scholars after 500 BC tried to lower the standard of moderation, encouraging more ordinary people like you and me to approach closer to the appropriation. So this is a basic point here. Now, I should, by the way, to provide conceptual references about the qualitative differences among deficiency, intermediate, and extreme values. Aristotle proposed 14 core values for our understanding of a moderation of virtues. For instance, according to Aristotle, courage is a virtue, which is great, courage, right? Be brave. And then, but scaring is a deficiency, and rushness is excessive. So this is just give us a little bit reference about the three different criteria. So now let's talk about dilemma in fighting against COVID-19 in China and the United States. I try to use the case studies to reflect or to demonstrate some key issues in both countries. Following the moderation philosophy, I would like to evaluate the anti-pandemic efforts in the two countries since January 2020. I will try my best to balance my discussion as objectively as possible. Number one, case one, I will focus on the insufficient and inactive action by both countries during the early stage of COVID-19. As you know, during the initial period of fighting against the pandemic efforts, both China and the United States were generally inactive, missing the most precious timing and the golden opportunity for virus control. For instance, China has missed at least one critical month from late December of 2019 to late January of 2020. Similarly, United States has missed at least two priceless months from mid-January to mid-March 2020. To find their common reasons behind this kind of common situation, we need to get assistance from cognitive theory, which may have 4 points for our reference. Number one, the inactive early reactions may relate to unknowing because of hiding the truth, because of a complication of this exceptional new virus. Okay, that's first reason. Second one, it's unawareness in which people are incapable of understanding the information due to lack of our IQ. Obviously, this virus is too complicated to understand. The third is caused by misunderstanding and the misinformation because people were misled by media and the politicians who downplay the serious virus on purpose to avoid public panic. Finally, people are denial. That's terrible. Okay, people are denial to know because of a bias and arrogance, pretending to sleep. In other words, they know what's happening, but they don't want to know or don't care. So this kind of inactive action also interpreted by many famous public decision theory, but I don't have time to discuss here. More importantly, I should address here this general tendency of insufficient action and missteps in the early stage of a pandemic are driven by human common psychology and the reaction, because most people cannot accept extreme lockdown policy as a common sense, right? And also unwilling to accept the massive unemployment initiated by economy shutdown. Similarly, those policymakers are not brave enough to risk their political legitimacy, fearing that their tough action against the virus will be more harmful than the virus itself. So let it be. Doing nothing must be better than nudging or slugging. So this is a kind of a situation here. Now let's talk about second case, which is totally different from the first case. This is about excessive actions, which include both extreme pandemic control and aggressive economic opening. Different subjects with the similar natures of action. Okay, in addition to Wuhan, everybody knows China has relatively few cases of infection, but China has extremely conducted lockdown policies in communities, roads, bridge, and then even building in Wuhan or other cities, right? But similarly, very interesting, San Francisco Mayor Breed may be encouraged by Wuhan's tough but effective policies and decided to quarantine the San Francisco on February 28th, 2020, when no single COVID-19 case has been confirmed. Also, during the first period of a crisis, California Governor Newsom implement relatively tough policies against the virus. And then guess what? As a result, Governor has long been ranked with the highest supporting rate in the United States, up to 83%, almost double the amount before the outbreak from 42% to 83%. Both Wuhan and the California cases may indicate that overreactions sometimes are not necessarily improper during the emergency. However, when this excessive principle is applying to reopening economy, the results are different. For instance, when pandemic situation in the United States did not reach the turning point yet on May 10, 2020, 47 states under pressure of a public opinion decided to partially and gradually open the business. It seems that it is to trade off life for economy or trade off life for freedom. As a result, the second or third outbreak of a virus dramatically come back since May and June. It really demonstrates, also tells us that the proper pandemic control and economic reopening cannot exactly or absolutely follow the public opinion. Evaluation of a public opinion also needs to appropriation without assuming that majority of a people's opinion must be moderate or could be correct. So this is a very important lesson we can learn here. So this kind of a tough case related to the public opinion has been addressed by very famous voting theory of public choice. First of all, according to this theory, majority votes are not necessary to represent preference of all voters because one person has one vote only. Also, meanwhile, the election may involve in corruption. To pass their favorable bills, some voters may offer bribes during the election. In the end, inappropriate bill in favor of a small group may be passed. In addition, the principle of a majority vote will cause the low participation rate of election because the cost of election is so high, but its impact on individual life is so minimal. As a result, as you know, United States popular vote for president as a percentage of a total population never be over 45%, which means each elected president just needs to win over about 20% of the total popular votes. Then he can be president of the United States. It shows that so-called the majority of votes doesn't necessarily represent real majority of public opinion. So in particular, as you know, according to crowd behavior, 乌合之众, written by French guy, Le Bon, group behavior is easy to lose a moderate sense of reason and wisdom. Compared with the individual behaviors, in Le Bon's view, the group action usually have 5 major problems, such as eager to act, easy to breathe, lack of information, violence, and the no moral virtues, such as red guards during the Chinese Cultural Revolution. So this is case 3. Let's move to case 3. This is about the 90,000 volunteer doctors and the nurses in the New York City. According to New York Times reporter of April 8th, 2020, 90,000 volunteer doctors and nurses, including 25,000 doctors from outside of New York State, had a problem to get their medical assignments in New York City hospital because only 1% of these life-saving volunteers were approved to perform their work on time. This kind of terrible restriction were caused by bureaucratic procedures and many unnecessary legal restrictions or regulations, such as illegalizing out-of-state doctors working in New York State. This is a very popular rule, as you know. The United States favors state rights. You cannot feel free to go any state to use a doctor license. This case delivers a very serious message as to how to deal with the 5 tough dilemmas during this national crisis. Number 1, which factor is much important or much critical between life and the law? Should the law serve for human beings' life, or should life obey the prestige legal system? I don't have answer, you name, okay? Second one, if people allow one leader to feel free to change the law due to the emergency, how can we make sure that this leader will not abuse his free power and became the terrible, horrible dictator later on. As you know, although New York governor changed the tough regulation allowing out-of-state medical staff to take care of New York patients in April, we have to ask whether this one person's decision on deregulation has set up bad example for democratic society, promoting centralized power later. When can New York City turn the law back again? What if governor addicts to his special power? What if he received popular support to keep his power? And then what if he doesn't want to change the law back after COVID-19? What should we do? We don't know. Number 3, given the people's radical and even violent demands against wearing face masks in the United States, as you know, also supporting economy reopening quickly, should a government follow the rule by law or rule by people? If the regulation about wearing masks conflicts with the people's favors or people's opinion, should we change the law to follow people's preference, or should we re-educate or force people to obey the law? Is this the President Lincoln's principle of like for the people, by the people, of the people, still a priority for governing a country right now in the United States? Keep in mind, while politicians are debating about this kind of a dilemma or Democrat principle I just mentioned, right? What's happened? More and more people lost their priceless lives. Okay, so finally, which one is much important between life and freedom? During this American Revolution, as you may know, one slogan was very popular: "Give me liberty or give me death." Right? Is this revolutionary principle still acceptable during this pandemic? As you know, many Americans are now violating the regulation of a social distance because this policy damages their priceless freedom. Which one is much important, freedom or life? So in this regard, emergence of proper policy sometimes requires excessive governance by strong leaders. And then we always say, well, overkill can only be overcorrect. Numerous historical facts have proved that peaceful and a stable period was in favor of moderation, but in light of exceptional chaos or extraordinary emergency, it was usually crying for quick changes or tough policies. For example, the unexpected economic policy in dealing with the rapid change in Asian China, such as radical reforms conducted by Shuang Yang, Wang Anshi, and then Zhang Juzheng, were often unpopular in the contemporary time. You know, Shuang Yang was killed by the king, but were recognized by the history as an outstanding accomplishment. I have to miss case number 4 about the Chinese American and the PPE delivering because I don't have the time. Let's move to my critical reflection on pandemic. My first reflection relates to the 2 paradoxes about appropriation or moderation. Number 1, moderation, as you know, is a common sense and a very popular value, except by most ordinary people. But on the other hand, it is so difficult, if not impossible, for ordinary people to practice what they believe and what they support. For example, I condemn other countries which banned my freedom of travel due to COVID-19, but I strongly defend my own government policy which brought its own citizens and students to return to their own country because I don't want them to bring virus back. I'm so selfish, right? Double standard. The creator contradicts the Confucius principle. That means imposes on others to do what I hate. As you know, Confucius always favor the 己所不欲，勿施于人. But in reality, we always want 己所不欲，必施于人. Okay, so ironic. That's the point. This dilemma. Second, and the similar paradox is that on the one hand, most ordinary people hate extreme behavior. But on the other hand, they usually tend to trust and follow extreme leaders, taking their extreme actions. As a result, these kind of leaders are able to kidnap and mislead people to get involved in risky wars and crises, according to the theory of minority of evil created by Arendt, Germany. And ordinary people consciously or unconsciously nurture and support their extreme leaders, such as Hitler, assisted by German people without any enforcement. Based on, to be honest, to everybody here, based on the in-depth observation of this pandemic, I feel so sad to discover that human foolishness really has no bottom line, including myself, okay? I'm so stupid at this point in the past 9 months. This is no most stupid, only more stupid. Even more terrified is that it is so difficult to find the boundary between wisdom and the foolishness. For instance, to refer to the deer as a horse, very famous slang, 子路为马, which was originally a result of extreme enforcement in Qing dynasty in China, right? However, now the fact is that I'm more than willing to call a real deer a horse. And I strongly and sincerely believe that this fake horse is a real. Whoever say is a fake horse, I will fight against him. Especially, I'm even blamed on myself for being so stupid because I treat a real horse as a fake deer for a long time. As a result, right and the wrong are reversed. The wisdom and the foolishness are difficult to distinguish. That's a big disaster, I believe. Next one, my second reflection about this war on pandemic is that we need to promote 3-layered principle to advocate moderation. This triple principle at least has 4 positive functions, as you know, quite clear as a Chinese, if you know a little bit about Chinese philosophy. Number 1, it relates to wisdom. According to Confucius, if 3 persons work together, one of them can teach me, right? Number 2, productive. In Lao Tzu's view, 1 produces 2, 2 produces 3, and the 3 beget everything, right? Number 3, stability, which can balance other 2 extreme sides. As always, as you know, a triangle stuff always represents stability. Last one, peacemaking. According to the 3-side coin theory, the middle side of a coin has a unique function to connect right, and left, and then make connection and a compromise between 2 sides. Therefore, I believe it seems to me that when judging a complicated issues, ordinary people like me, right, like a 俗人, see one side only. The wise person understand the 2 sides, but the bright people, like a Professor Guo, right, are capable of discovering 3 sides. Like, in other words, to become a bright person, you must understand at least the 3 sides of a case: good, bad, and the middle, indicated by Chinese characters. That's much funny, based on my understanding. Wise means 智, which means a wise person can understand a sun, 知道, 下面是个日, right? 日. But a bright person means what? 明, which include both sun and the moon. 左边一个日，右边一个月. So, according to Lao Tzu, those who can understand themselves are bright. 自知则明, right? In other words, if I can understand you and me only, I'm a wise man instead of a bright guy. So this is very important points. I hope it give you some reflection. My third reflection is about the triangle perspective. First of all, this triangle perspective can help us avoid linear polarization of 2 sides, progress and backwards, and then can advocate value-free judgment. Applying triangular perspective is possible to tolerate both inactive and aggressive action because 3 different angles have no fixed values without clear definition of good or bad. For instance, aggressive policy against virus has been proved positively in Wuhan and California. But similar aggressive economy reopening is not necessarily positive, right? So second point, triangle perspective will help us understand the functions of three corners are interdependent, supporting each other. If there's no corner of excess, then other two corners will no longer exist. Then you change the triangle shape to the linear again, right? So for instance, New York City learned its lesson from early inactive policies and developed the effective antivirus procedures since May. As a result, New York is experiencing relatively positive balance between low rate of infection and moderate economic recovery since July. To be sure, searching for moderation is an involving process, endless process of testing and correcting mistakes. Today's economy reopening in various states of the United States is also a trial testing the water. Once COVID-19 rebounds, the economic recovery policy must be adjusted immediately and accordingly. And the key is to learn from mistake, not to repeat stupid mistake again. I like a giant baby and never grow up. Finally, triangle perspective gives us a space for circular thinking and imagination. Yesterday's moderation may become today's excess, and today's excess may become tomorrow's insufficiency. The circularity reveals the value, relativity, and the historical evolution of moderation. Therefore, don't celebrate too early if you have done excellent job against COVID-19. Similarly, don't give up if you have experienced massive failures in the past 9 months. The COVID-19 gives everybody hopeful expectation, but no certain future, because we are living in the new age of the so-called VUCA. I don't know if you heard this term. I'm created by American business guy. A volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. All right. So this is my first reaction is from economic curves. I really prefer, during my teaching, for my teaching method, I really prefer to use the curves to explain my idea, because one curve is worth 1,000 words. To better understand the philosophy of appropriation, first of all, we may revise two classical economic curves to improve our interpretation and understanding of COVID-19. Number one is a very famous one, Laffer curve, originally designed to balance the confrontation between individual income taxation and the national revenue, discovered by Arthur Laffer in 1972. To me, Laffer curve can serve as an effective tool to explain the dilemma of economy reopening and the pandemic control. Okay, let's see. Assuming virus control efforts are extremely tough, and all people are locked down in their own houses, then economy may die completely, and everybody may die due to starving. For example, okay, this is here. If virus control is 100 over here, and the economic recovery is 0, right? Then everybody was starving, and then, although it looks very healthy, but you don't have food to eat, and the economy is 0. So that's the one extreme. Second, by contrast, if the economy is open to extreme level without any efforts against the pandemic, then everybody may die due to virus, which means here, if economy recovery completely, and then the virus control 0, you don't control the virus, and then everybody got the disease, and then you die. So this is we call extreme example. However, if intensity of a pandemic control is relaxed to 0.8, okay, here, control just a little bit move down, relax, and then economy recovery can move to B. That's great, like a little better than here, right? And then if you relax the virus control one more time to to go C area, and the economic recovery to D. That's much better. But perfect point is what? E. Once you reach the perfect middle between virus control and the economy recovery, and then reach the E, but we should seek the second best or even third best to reach the range instead of a middle point. I just mentioned we're looking for middle. So therefore, C, D, E, this area should be second best. Although E is the best, but hopefully C, D, E, this area could be middle range for the balance. Okay, now one more, the curve, also very meaningful, famous, discovered by Marshall, supply and demand curve, created by this guy in 1890. The red line here means that the regulation of a virus control keep reducing, demanding, moving down. And then blue line means that economy is gradually recovering, moving up, developing. Once two lines intersect each other, it means that pandemic control, economic reopening have reached the balance point. Both classical curves demonstrate that to reach the balance between antivirus and a recovering economy, we need to learn how to compromise and how to trade off the two priorities. Don't be too greedy to expect the first best result, even it's impossible to get the second best. So sometimes be realistic to accept second worst. Here is another the picture for your understanding here. This is a picture demonstrates that we call triple dilemmas. It tells us that it's almost impossible to make one product fast, good, and cheap together. But it's possible to get a partial good and a partial cheap, which means overlapping shadow. Okay, you can get a little bit fast and good, or cheap and fast, or good and cheap. You cannot get everything together, all right? So if you're too greedy, you may get what? This terrible middle, the wide hole. This is a worst situation. You will get nothing about this. So we have to learn how to trade off here. I don't have time to talk about the Predicament effect. If I don't have, later on, if you have any question, we can discuss that one. So let's move to the next one, all right? So this is, again, I also don't have time to talk about this so-called George Holmes curve today. But basically, I divide whole world into 4 different types. This is the Q1, which means tough prevention and a quick recovery. You can pick up any country or case for this model. And second one, soft prevention and a quick recovery. And then third, Q3 and Q4. And then make sure this line could be movable. Really depend on, ideally, your circle cannot totally disconnect XO. If you leave the middle perfect point, that means inappropriate. So this is, I don't have time to talk about in detail. Let's move quickly. Next one. Let's make a conclusion. British philosopher, I guess you know that, Russell believed that only historical lesson for human being is to forget the historical lessons. German philosopher Hegel also said, lessons we have learned from history is that we have learned nothing from history. Given this tough pandemic, we need to ask ourselves, can we remember some useful lessons if we would learn more from perspective of humanities, turning painful self-reflection and confession into a DNA of our culture and our value and our life? My conclusion will cover 3 points here. Number 1, the opportunities for humanities from this crisis. What kind of opportunity for humanities studies, like what my area, through this public crisis? We all know that unstable warring states, spring and the autumn in China, right? And the long-standing Greek wars produced hundreds of Chinese masters and the Greek philosophers 2,500 years ago, all right? Also a horrible Black Death pandemic in the 14th century provide big critical driving force for European Renaissance. While some people try to divide our current period into pre-pandemic and the post-pandemic, like a pre-war or post-war as a historical turning point, it seems to me that this pandemic has changed human history even more than World War II. Perhaps 2019 is the last year before BC, and 2020 is the first year of AD, which means here BC stands for what? Before COVID-19. AD stands for after disease. Humanities scholars should have a strong sense of a mission and a passion, striving to welcome the arrival of possible new age of a Renaissance. In this regard, I would like to call for a collective research project with all Hong Kong guys and maybe other guys, project on the, I call Pandemic Humanities, or Humanities Studies on Pandemic in the first year of AD. As you know, I'm Chief Research Officer. I know where's the money. I always love a money-making project like Professor Gore. Okay, we should have a very strong sensitivity. Where is the money and which topic can attract the money? I can promise you, Pandemic Humanities or Humanities Study on Pandemic could be very hot and popular. That's why I really love this wonderful conference. This conference could be like a founding father of this kind of wonderful research project. If you can do that, I can promise I will commit my support to this forthcoming project because Dr. is my wonderful friend. So this kind of study is really designed to study the role of humanities in pandemic. In the past 25 years, nature, animals, machines like AI, science, and even religion have become more and more incapable of controlling powerful human beings. So this super COVID-19 actually has its horrible mission to punish human beings' selfishness, greed, arrogance, and extremeness. In particular, this virus functions as a miracle mirror showing all ugly weakness of human natures, including myself. For example, given the fact that humans eat wild animals and play biological games without any boundary, the COVID-19 now is assumed a mission to penalize humans. While we are selfish, everybody remember, we're selfish to watch the spread of a pandemic in other countries without any support or sympathy in the early stage. Virus invade our own country, offer equal suffering without any exceptions. All right? Once we cannot wait to celebrate the little victory of anti-pandemic, virus bounced back, stimulating strange medical cases such as circulate test result from positive to negative, and then from negative to positive again. Plus, infection without symptom. Never happened before. Also, while we are eager to invent vaccine and develop magic drugs against COVID-19, virus has mutated or changed itself, wasting all the previous efforts, including recently failed Oxford vaccine. In particular, once we lost patience and speed up economic recovery, we may suffer from second, third, or fourth outbreak of COVID-19, making us unable to anticipate when this pandemic would end. Given this philosophical alignment of this war between humans and viruses, we may notice that, or may learn that we must learn how to coexist with our enemies, including virus, including animals, including machine, and don't expect the winner to take all. And we should give the virus a certain living space. I want to live, but you don't have to die. Learning to compromise with each other. Similarly, viruses, very interesting. Viruses should not be too aggressive without boundary. Otherwise, God, our God, will be coming, who is a superpower between humans and virus, will be coming to punish the virus. So this is a kind of, let me finish very quickly. Last one, secondly, we need to understand the positive effects of addressing common deficiency of a human nature. At least, as my understanding, once we focus on common mistake, common weakness of a human being, there will promote three positive effects. Number one, it can help us to tolerate weakness of others, because you, we, and the Z are not essentially different in terms of selfishness and excessive desires. The second is to learn to criticize ourselves first, conducting self-examination of our own weakness. Mencius Mengzi famously said, if you cannot get what you wanted, you must seek the reason from yourself. 反求诸己. Finally, it helps us to be optimistic because we can work together to seek the evolution and the progress of human virtues. Okay, finally, I would like to address the human nature's determination. Given this COVID-19, we all believe that it's so critical to improve our insufficient institution and the improper culture. But keep in mind that critical determination for a better institution and a better culture is our human being, human virtue, and the human spiritualities. Also, we always emphasize the effective leadership matters, right? But the leader's effectiveness really depends on quality and the virtue of the people. In particular, we often say that good institutions make bad people good. But again, sometimes bad people can make a good institution from good to bad and from bad to worse. In conclusion, to promote moderate culture, establish a moderate institution, and regular moderate actions, we not only need to facilitate educational enlightenment and the cultural transformation like this excellent conference, but also need to enhance our leaders' mind and the capacity of toleration, communication, and the particular we call collaboration. I strongly hope and believe that together we are capable of implementing the proper balance between virus control and economic reopening through promoting proper self-interest, proper rationality, and a proper development. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm done. Thank you. Sorry, a little bit long.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. I think we still have time for a few questions. We started late. Thank you, Professor Holmes, for this wonderful talk. I learned a lot, and your idea of the humanity of the COVID-19 is a great initiative. We should really talk. And I have a few questions for that. Now I open the question for audience, and anybody have questions can type in, and I will read out, and Professor Holmes will answer the question. Okay. So he will give you the bright answer, right? Not even wise answer.
No, ordinary answer.
Yeah, but can I give you some ordinary question first?
No, why?
Yeah, I think you're great. You know, this talk about the triangle, the three components is really what I starting to appreciate, but. Now I think, you know, this pandemic coming, right, in the time when China and America now have a huge conflict. So in your opinion, right, you are in the center of the United States and you are pretty active in this American politics, but could you actually give me some kind of your idea, right? Is this pandemic, what's this pandemic role to play in the Sino-United States conflict? Is actually catalyst more tension, or is actually some kind of interesting factor to reduce the tension? What kind of this pandemic played in this relationship between the UK, between the China and the United States?
Right now, basically, is a very negative role of this pandemic in U.S.-China relation, as you know, the key reason, some other speech and article already mentioned that, because both sides never criticize themselves. That's why this is the significance of my talk today. I really try to deliver a strong message to both sides. We must 反求诸己, criticize ourselves first. Don't blame, don't treat other guy as a scapegoat, all right? Because elections coming, again, just pick up someone as a target and then to get a vote. And then once the election over, let's shake a hand again. This is totally irresponsible points. Similarly, for both sides, that's why I mentioned here. Leadership is very important, and then the culture is very important, and the institutions is very important. But look at the popular opinions, which is really relate to our ordinary people's spirituality and the virtues. So in that case, I really encourage everybody to read the Confucius stuff again, particularly Aristotle and then the Socrates. So we do need the humanity renaissance in both countries. If so, we can address easy issues so easy, and then particularly we can develop collaboration and communication so effective. So this is so unfortunate. That's why I mentioned that this virus function as a mirror, as a beautiful mirror, fantastic mirror to reflect all humans, the infection and the defection and the mind disease. So that's my point. But that's why we really hope we can develop kind of research project to focus on this case study, to benefit from so rich humanities, philosophies in the history in both countries, right? To develop all kind of a solution, or at least a conceptual solution regarding this kind of issues.
Right, thank you very much. Any other questions?
Which means I cover everything. So let's have a dialogue between you and me.
You're actually quite strong. You send so much message, people still have to digest. But,
that's good.
But seriously, you know, I really enjoy it. We should have this kind of dialogue much more. So I really feel, you know, at the moment, right, the United States and the Chinese scholars should really have a serious talk to actually talking about what actually the direction we should go, right? Given these two nations have such bad situation. And also, you know, today is a quite important day, and today means today in Hong Kong time, right? Because for you it's tomorrow. So it's the time, it's the days which Americans take effects to now block all the chip to Huawei, and also the time to force to sell TikTok. That's the day happening today. So it's a quite interesting day, and I quite appreciate that, you know, on this day you're talking about the modesty, you're talking about property. So this is really the time to actually think about this. Thank you very much. I really hope we can start this project again. So we can start project now.
And also start the institutional partnership between Fordham and the youth. Actually, we share a lot of the same mission. We are Catholic University. We are Jesuit University.
Yeah.
You know, that liberal arts. We are liberal. We don't have an engineering school and a medical school similar to the. Yeah.
And we are very similar. And also, you are the school. Trump is your alumni anyway, right?
Yeah, half. He took the first 2 years at Fordham University.
Yeah, but that's all because your education results. You have a wonderful president, so we should definitely work together.
Yeah. Okay. So also, I cannot wait to welcome to New York City.
Okay. Thank you very much. I love
Thank you.
I hope
thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.